Alright everyone, it's time for Vermont Issues, episode 143. The Burlington, the city here in Vermont, is claiming, its officials, our sanctuary city status is just fine. It adheres to federal law, and we're proud of it. There's no problem with it. Don't be xenophobic, don't be bigoted or something. You're totally wrong. Now, mostly it boils down to this. The proponents of sanctuary city support and things like that, essentially most of the time, they're not making a legal argument in any way, shape, or form, which is, it's funny, that's what they're trying to make here. What they argue is that it's immoral to enforce immigration law. It's immoral to kick somebody out of the country unless they've committed some heinous crime. If they've just been here illegally, that they shouldn't be deported. But that's not what federal law states. See, this is what sanctuary city actually means. A sanctuary city is just a city that has decided that for generally ethical reasons, according to their opinion, their subjective opinion of what is or is not right or wrong to do, they have decided not to enforce all aspects, or even in some cases any aspects, of immigration law. They've decided not to allow the enforcement of it within their city limits. That means that their local departments, their police, and their officials won't cooperate with ICE. They won't cooperate with federal agents in general. That is ignoring federal law. They are in breach. They are breaking the law by having this status. The only thing that's preventing this from being completely recognized and enforced, as in we will come in and we will imprison then local officials who are refusing to carry out the law. It's your responsibility. You're endangering the country. You're endangering not just your municipality, but potentially everyone around you in the state. You're endangering other communities that are outlying. And so we're going to come in and take your officials and put them in jail until they're willing to comply with federal immigration law. Sanctuary cities are in breach of immigration law. It's just like Obama. Obama didn't unilaterally change immigration and customs enforcement. He didn't unilaterally change anything except he issued the order to federal agencies, and he's not legally entitled to do this, but he was never properly challenged on it. And he tried to stretch further, and he was shot down by the courts. When he tried to grant executive amnesty to millions of people, the courts finally got involved and said, no, Mr. Obama, indeed, you cannot do that. But he got away with all sorts of stuff because nobody wanted to mount a proper legal challenge. It is clear that the President of the United States has the right to enforce immigration law. But the President does not have the right to declare, hey, I'm not going to enforce a law. I'm not going to require at the federal level enforcement of it because I find it to be mean. I find it to be naughty, therefore I'm going to ignore the will of the people as stated through Congress by past administrations, their consent as well, saying, hey, it's fine. By the way, a lot of these people that are acting holier than thou on the moral level, saying, well, sanctuary cities, huzzah, and immigration law is bad because of racism. A lot of these people were in favor of mass deportation even a decade ago. Obama himself. Back when Obama was a senator, there's several speeches that he made. You can look them up on YouTube. Obama talking about immigration as a senator. Look it up. What did he say? Bubba Bill talking back in the middle of the 1990s. What did he say? If you were to take those transcripts and read them out in Trump's voice, you'd convince a lot of people that it was Trump that said it. It was considered totally fine and normal at the time. We were a country in which people, including Democrats, generally speaking, didn't want to rock the boat on enforcing law and order, on making sure that those things were present. What we've got is essentially the seepage of sedition and treason into the Democratic Party on this issue. That is, in the most literal sense, these people have decided to start ignoring the law. And breaking it. Now they're trying to cast it off as like a modern day like Underground Railroad, or it's just like the civil rights struggle. No, it's really not. It involves people who are not citizens of the United States. Now, if you're asking would I mass deport people who were brought here like as infants and didn't really have a choice, no, I wouldn't mass deport them either unless they were committing a bunch of crimes. But trust me, I'd be more lenient than most libertarians even on this issue, because I wouldn't even give a fuck about like victimless crimes. Like smoked weed, I don't really care. You know, most of the native citizens around here smoking weed too. Fucking cares. But you still do have millions of people in that very large group who right now are being sheltered. We've got this case from San Francisco where somebody murders somebody and gets off scot-free. Now, the reason why the jury found him not guilty is probably to keep him from getting deported. That's probably what. Oh, we don't want to enforce any laws, says San Francisco. Oh, fuck laws. Well, then why don't you just declare yourselves libertarians and stop trying to go after people's guns and taxing them out of business? Why don't you just become libertarians if you want to make the, hey, fuck law and order argument? You know, you'd be definitely hardline libertarians. I think you'd be a bit beyond, like, my brand of monarchism at that point. I think you'd be way, way out in Ancapistan land. But at least it would be capitalistic in nature. At least people wouldn't be paying $10,000 a month for a single bedroom apartment somewhere in the middle of San Francisco. That must be real, real funny. Long story short, though, this is the city of Burlington is simply ignoring federal immigration law. It's basically saying we want the Obama era to continue where we don't have to actually enforce anything or work with agencies at the federal level who would deport people who are not here legally. That's what it boils down to. But it's not their choice. Legally speaking, they don't have the option to unilaterally ignore laws. It's, ironically, I will say this, it is ironic that this is exactly the same as like the medical marijuana debate. Medical marijuana is not federally legal. But you have to rely upon the federal government not to enforce existing drug law to allow those dispensaries to even continue operating. For a while, even under Obama, they were still raiding them in like Montana. They were still enforcing federal law on these things. Now, I totally disagree with that federal law, and I see a definite disconnect between the two. Of course, one of these things, mass immigration of an uncontrolled nature, is harmful to a society. All these arguments, oh, well, it helps the economy. No, it really doesn't. Not unless you intend them to be used as slave labor by corporations, which I hope the left realizes is what happens half the time. You've got people, they have to sell drugs or sell their bodies, or they end up, making $1 an hour working in some hovel. That's what's happening to people because of undocumented migration, because of the movement of people in large numbers that the economy can't even properly absorb. That's what's happening. Whereas with the drug war, it's actually the flip side. The economy is helped by, hey, people should be able to smoke weed because then, we're not literally, people aren't pumping money out to cartels in Mexico or something where the drugs are being funneled in from parts further south, where all the cocoa plants are or whatever. That's really, it's almost, it's the same legal sense, but everything else is actually an opposite, which is odd. So, yeah. While you can be merciful towards certain groups of people, the idea that the city of Burlington is not breaking federal law by offering sanctuary status is completely wrong. Now, you might get away with it because the average person in Burlington is far left, so they probably think it's it's evil to enforce any immigration laws. That may be true, but you are still breaking the federal law. You can get away with it, but you're breaking it. That's about all. Peace out.